Ivermectin has been given the nod for use on adults in South Africa, but it's only for a topical cream used to treat a skin condition, topical rather. The South African Health Products Regulatory Authority and Afriforum reached the agreement. Afriforum had taken the regulatory authority to court to force it to register the use of ivermectin. So let's get clarity on exactly what this agreement means from SAHPRA's Boitumelo Semete Makokotlela. Very good morning to you, Boitumelo. What exactly does this mean for us?
Sure. Also, just to clarify, and again, thank you for having me. So what happened is we had this product in the pipeline that was submitted to SAHPRA, and as you correctly say, this is a topical, it's a cream for the treatment of a tropical, it's typically used for tropical diseases, but this one is used specifically for skin inflammation. So this product was in the pipeline and it's now been registered, and it contains ivermectin as an active. And what happens is when you register an active for human use, what it does, it allows certain provisions of the Act. So ivermectin for SAHPRA and in the country remains to be unregistered and unauthorized for the treatment or for management or prophylaxis of COVID-19. So our position as SAHPRA still remains. But now that the product is registered for human use, it means it can be used off-label and still requires a Section 21 authorization process.
Okay, so where does this leave the pills and the other forms of ivermectin that we see in the country?
Sure. So any manufacturer who's bringing in tablets, capsules, etc., they still need to get authorization from the regulator to do that, because we haven't registered what we would call the finished formulation. So while we have a topical formulation that has ivermectin, which has been registered, but for any other finished product that is a capsule, etc., it would still require registration. So in that case, they still have to apply to SAHPRA for the patients to access this unregistered formulation of the product. So the compassionate use access program that we had put in place, it still remains.
Okay, and what does this mean for COVID, if anything?
Sure. So, for COVID, it doesn't change much. The statement we issued sometime in January that says we don't have sufficient information to indicate that ivermectin is effective for the management of COVID. But also there's insufficient evidence to say it's not effective, right? And we know it's a generally safe drug. And hence, because of this, and it's termed a clinical equipoise, right? Because of this position we find ourselves in, and at the time, if you remember, we were dealing with the second wave, we had said, we will make this product accessible only through the specific program, wherein the responsibility and the liability lies with the medical practitioner. However, they need to notify us, they need to apply to us, and they need to then report to us when they use this product and tell us how the patients are faring, are there any adverse side effects, etc.
All right. Have you found any positive effects, impact of it? Those who vouch for it just say that it stops you from getting to the extreme state that we see many COVID carriers get to.
No, we haven't. The latest scientific data is not even positive. The latest study we saw was one from Colombia, wherein there's no statistical difference between a group of patients that were put on ivermectin and those on placebo, right? So the latest set of scientific data does not give us any confidence to authorize this drug for the treatment of COVID. Yes, we've got anecdotal data, but we can't base our decision on anecdotal data. We have to base our decisions on properly conducted clinical trials.
How do you get to this sort of decision? What is the process involved?
Sure. So, typically you would have, a scientist applying to do a clinical trial, and we could do that in South Africa. We haven't received an application for an efficacy trial. We've received an application for a bioavailability trial, because the challenge with this drug is that in the current formulations that are used for animal use, we don't know if the human body will absorb it sufficiently for the treatment of COVID. And that's why we're extremely cautious around this, because there's no sufficient information on the dose and on the dose formulation. So what we've now have done is, under this program, it can be accessed. And so those are some of the, question marks. But we would need to, authorize a clinical trial, and it has to be properly designed. We will look at the endpoints of that clinical trial. When we then get data that is statistically significant, that shows that ivermectin performs better than the standard of care, we would then review the quality of the product, the safety elements of the product, as well as the clinical efficacy. So it would be quite a rigorous review. And then we could then authorize it for the management of COVID.